Every year, thousands of people go out and purchase a wild animal as a pet, then find out, occasionally far too late, that the adorable infant they carried home has turned into an unmanageable, a dangerous, or a profoundly miserable adult. Today, we're working through 10 wild animals that should never end up living inside anybody's house. And to begin, we're turning to a small primate that flooded social media for entirely the wrong reasons. Few animals anywhere have gone viral, quite the way the slow loris has. Those enormous round eyes, combined with slow, deliberate movements, have turned it into one of the most sought-after exotic pets anywhere on Earth. Clips showing slow lorises tickled, fed rice balls, and holding miniature umbrellas have racked up hundreds of millions of views, with comment sections stuffed full of people asking where one can be bought. What none of those clips show is what actually sits behind the exotic loris trade, which ranks among the cruelest animal trades operating anywhere. Slow lorises hold the distinction of being the only venomous primates on the planet, producing a toxin from glands located on their elbows that gets mixed into saliva to produce a venomous bite. So, to render them handleable, poachers and dealers routinely tear out or cut down the loris's teeth using nail clippers or a pair of wire cutters, a procedure performed with no anesthesia that regularly ends in fatal infection, in shock, in blood loss. Estimates put the proportion dying during capture and transport somewhere between 30 and 90% before any buyer ever sees them. Whichever animals survive that ordeal and reach somebody's living room arrive psychologically wrecked, physically compromised, and entirely incapable of expressing a single natural behavior. These are nocturnal creatures whose oversized eyes evolved for total darkness, so a brightly lit house subjects them to constant stress and discomfort. And those viral clips of a loris lifting its arms while being tickled show nothing resembling enjoyment. That animal is reaching toward its venom gland out of terror. Every share of a cute loris clip feeds demand for a creature whose capture means mutilation, suffering, and death at enormous scale. And with that, the slow loris takes 10th place. Among North America's wild animals, few match the raccoon for intelligence or sheer charisma, and because baby raccoons are undeniably adorable, a steady stream of people keep trying to raise them at home. Infant raccoons are playful, inquisitive, affectionate, and they can be bottle-fed and socialized in ways that make them look like an eccentric substitute for a dog or a cat. The trouble arrives alongside sexual maturity, at somewhere between 1 and 2 years old, when a dramatic behavioral shift converts that sweet, cuddly baby into a hyperactive, destructive, and steadily more aggressive adult, bearing no resemblance whatsoever to a domesticated animal. The dexterity of an adult raccoon is extraordinary. Those nimble, finger-like digits on the front paws will work latches open, turn a doorknob, unscrew a jar lid, flip light switches, get into refrigerators, and take apart essentially whatever captures their attention, which in practice means everything in your home not bolted down, along with a few things that are. Owners of pet raccoons routinely report walking in to discover kitchen cabinets stripped of contents and those contents strewn across the floor, curtains reduced to ribbons, electrical wiring gnawed through, producing genuine fire risk, toilet lids raised and whatever sits in the bowl investigated with tremendous enthusiasm. Potted plants dug out and their soil redistributed over every surface in sight, and every food container within any kind of reach opened, tasted, and abandoned. Their intelligence sits comparable to certain primates, which makes them impossible to outwit with ordinary pet proofing, and they will defeat whatever latch, lock, or barrier you construct faster than you can invent the next one. Certain owners have described life alongside a pet raccoon as a containment arms race that escalates forever, and that the raccoon wins every single time. They also rank among the leading rabies carriers in North America, responsible for something like 30% of every confirmed rabies case recorded in wildlife. On top of that comes raccoon roundworm, a parasite named Balis ascaris procyanus, whose microscopic eggs get shed in the feces by the million and can persist in the environment for years afterward. Should a person accidentally swallow those eggs, which happens readily through contaminated surfaces, soil, or any object a raccoon has defecated on, they travel up to the brain and produce something called neural larva migrans, capable of leaving behind permanent brain damage, or blindness, or death. That parasite risk on its own ought to disqualify the raccoon from anybody's list of candidate pets. In practice, though, the destruction, the aggression, the sheer wearing relentlessness of sharing a house with an adult raccoon tends to settle the question long before any medical risk becomes relevant. That gives the raccoon 9th place. Numerous domestication attempts have been made on the red fox over the years, and plenty of people living in fox country have wondered whether raising one at home might actually work. A fox does, after all, look like some cross between a house cat and a small dog, and they are obviously intelligent, obviously charismatic. But the reality of housing one bears almost no relation to the fantasy, and the main reason is the smell. Foxes mark territory with urine, and that urine contains compounds producing one of the most powerful and persistent odors anywhere in the mammalian world. Owners describe it as skunk spray, blended with ammonia, saturating everything it touches: furniture, carpets, walls, clothing, and no quantity of cleaning ever fully removes it. Litter training. A fox the way you'd train a cat is not possible, and they will scent mark every object, every surface, every corner of the house at a frequency and with an enthusiasm that would be impressive were living alongside it not so thoroughly unpleasant. Smell aside, a fox is hyperactive, nocturnal, and destructive. Their digging is obsessive, which puts carpets, gardens, and upholstery all at risk. They're also enormously noisy, generating a repertoire of screams, barks, and shrieks, all of it particularly loud after dark during breeding season. The celebrated Russian fox domestication experiment, now running better than 60 years and having produced genuinely tame animals through selective breeding, has shown that while domestication is technically achievable, the resulting foxes still hang on to plenty of the traits making wild ones unsuitable indoors: territorial scent marking and nocturnal activity patterns among them, and that puts the fox 8th. Nothing performs quite like otters online, and footage of pet otters at play, cuddling and producing adorable squeaking noises, has fueled surging demand for them as pets, especially across Japan, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Social media accounts built around pet otters gather followers by the million, and the animals typically get presented as playful, affectionate companions, essentially aquatic puppies. The reality diverges sharply from all of that. Otters rank among the most destructive and demanding animals anybody has ever tried keeping in captivity, and the problems their owners report read like a catalog of household nightmares. Being semi-aquatic, otters require permanent access to clean water in which to swim, dive, and play, and supplying that in a home means either a dedicated pool with professional filtration and drainage or daily excursions to a natural water source, and neither route is practical, nor affordable, nor sustainable for an average household. Deprived of proper water, otters develop skin conditions, stress behaviors, and depression, obvious even to somebody with zero knowledge of otter welfare. They also generate a musky, oily, overwhelmingly fishy odor that soaks into the fur, into the bedding, into everything they make contact with. As for their droppings, deposited with enthusiastic frequency in spots that appear selected for maximum inconvenience, keepers at several accredited zoological institutions have described the stench as ranking with the very worst odors anywhere in the animal kingdom, which is a genuine achievement in a line of work that involves cleaning up behind hippos and elephant seals. And they bite. Not the playful nipping a puppy does during a game. Genuinely, aggressively, straight to the emergency room bitey. Otter jaws are powerful, and their interlocking, sharp teeth were built for crushing crayfish shells, cracking mussels open and grinding through fish bones, so their bites leave deep, ragged puncture wounds highly prone to serious bacterial infection. Plenty of owners who spent that first year proudly posting adorable footage of their cuddly companion have quietly given the animal up after a hospital visit for a bite needing stitches, antibiotics, and a tetanus shot. This same trend has additionally fueled a surge in trafficking Asian small-clawed otters illegally, a species now listed as vulnerable, and conservation groups have identified social media specifically as a main driver of the demand, pushing it toward extinction. That places the otter seventh, and for the next section, we head down into South America. The capybara has spent these recent years as the Internet's favorite animal, and its calm, friendly manner, along with an apparent willingness to socialize with virtually any other species, ducks and cats through to crocodilians and monkeys, has won it the unofficial title of friendliest animal alive. Predictably, that reputation has pushed demand for pet capybaras upward, and across the several U.S. states where owning one is legal, people have started acquiring them without any real grasp of the commitment involved. Capybaras are the largest rodents on Earth, reaching 65 claws, and they are intensely social creatures that live in wild groups numbering 10 to 20. Keep one on its own, and you have essentially sentenced it to loneliness and depression, with solitary capybaras routinely developing behavioral problems, anxiety and aggression, and self-harm among them. They also demand a large outdoor area and access to either a pool or a pond because they're semi-aquatic and need regular full submersion to maintain skin health and to thermoregulate. Grasses form the bulk of their diet, and they must consume enormous quantities of roughage to grind down teeth that never stop growing. A capybara, whose teeth aren't properly maintained through diet, develops dental problems that hurt, that cost a fortune to treat, and that can prove fatal. Capybaras are also surprisingly quick and surprisingly strong when motivated, and a rodent weighing 65 kilos that has decided against going back into its enclosure is not something most people can physically manage. Now, while we're on the subject of deadly animals, if learning about the most dangerous creatures out there is your kind of thing, we wrote an e-book ourselves that may be worth your time. We titled it, The Deadliest 50 Animals on Earth, and it covers genuinely fascinating, genuinely terrifying creatures pulled from every continent. There's a link in the description if you fancy a look. And the capybara lands 6th. Keeping a pet monkey ranks among the oldest and most stubbornly persistent bad ideas in the entire exotic pet trade. Squirrel monkeys, capuchins, marmosets, and spider monkeys have all been traded as pets across many decades, and the appeal needs no explaining. A baby monkey is extraordinarily cute. It clings to its owner the way a human infant does. They can be dressed in tiny outfits, and they exhibit behaviors that read as recognizably human, because a monkey is, after all, a primate exactly as we are. Baby monkeys grow up, though, and once that happens, that cute, clinging infant turns into something territorial, aggressive, and sexually frustrated, resembling neither a human child nor any kind of pet. An adult monkey bites. Hard, often, and without any warning whatsoever. Those bites carry real medical weight because primates harbor diseases transmissible straight to people via saliva and via blood. Herpes B virus in certain species, along with tuberculosis and an assortment of gastrointestinal parasites. They're also tremendously destructive, applying dexterous hands and problem-solving intelligence to dismantling whatever in their surroundings looks interesting. A category that covers plumbing, wiring, door frames, and anything at all a hand can grip, twist, or pull. Worst of all, perhaps, pet monkeys raised in isolation from others of their kind end up psychologically damaged in ways painful to watch. They develop stereotypic behaviors, rocking and self-biting and hair-pulling, each an unmistakable marker of chronic stress and genuine emotional suffering. That puts the monkey in fifth place. A surprising number of people worldwide keep venomous snakes at home, and across many U.S. states it remains perfectly legal to house mambas, cobras, gaboon vipers, rattlesnakes, and other lethally venomous species with no permit needed, no training required, no insurance, and no inspection of any kind. Whatever enclosure the owner has judged secure enough is the only thing separating a king cobra from the suburb it's living in, and as a long list of escape incidents has demonstrated, an owner's judgment about what counts as secure proves wrong frequently and catastrophically. What that regulatory vacuum produces is predictable and grim. Escapes happen routinely across the United States, and once an Egyptian cobra, a gaboon viper, or a king cobra is loose on a residential street, you have a public safety emergency, placing first responders, neighbors, children, household pets, and the snake itself in serious danger. Escapes like these can trigger evacuations, closed schools, and multi-day searches, burning tens of thousands in emergency resources, all because somebody wanted a lethal reptile in their bedroom. Across the years, from 2005 to 2020, there were multiple documented deaths in the United States caused by venomous pet snakes, plus an unknown number of further bites needing anti-venom. Anti-venom for exotic species like cobras and mambas isn't routinely stocked by most American hospitals, and locating the correct product for a bite from something native to a different continent can consume hours or even days, a period during which the victim may die or sustain permanent tissue damage. Compounding all of it is the fact that a great many keepers of venomous snakes are self-taught hobbyists or social media enthusiasts, not trained herpetologists, and they routinely underestimate by an enormous margin how fast, how clever, how strong, and how utterly determined a snake bent on escape can be. A cobra kept safely contained for years can slip through a gap its owner never knew about, and the search operation that follows can shut down whole neighborhoods at a cost running into thousands of dollars. That puts venomous snakes fourth. Wolves and wolf-dog hybrids sit in a strange, tragic corner of the exotic pet trade. People are pulled toward them because they resemble dogs, and the romantic notion of keeping a loyal wild companion beside you appeals deeply to a lot of us. But a wolf is not a dog. They share better than 99% of their DNA with domestic dogs, and yet the two have traveled separate evolutionary roads for a minimum of 15,000 years, throughout which dogs were selectively bred for friendliness, for obedience, for reduced aggression, for an ability to read human social signals. Wolves went through none of that. No pet wolf and no wolf-dog hybrid of high content will ever conduct itself like a domestic dog. Not depending on how it's raised, not depending on how much love it's given, not depending on how early socialization starts. By nature, they are shy, anxious, and unpredictable when facing strangers or unfamiliar circumstances, and they lack the genetic disposition toward bonding with humans that 15,000 years of selection has installed in dogs. A golden retriever arrives genetically programmed to chase human approval and draw comfort from human company. A wolf comes genetically programmed to distrust anything unfamiliar and to meet perceived threats with flight or aggression. And no quantity of hand-rearing overrides evolutionary programming millions of years deep. Their destructiveness operates on a scale that reduces a badly behaved Labrador to a plush toy by comparison, with strength enough to tear through drywall, dismantle furniture, and dig beneath or climb over any fencing that would hold a domestic breed. They need enormous enclosures with secure fencing standing 2.5 meter high at minimum and buried a meter down at minimum, purely to defeat the determined digging escapes wolves are known for. They howl through the night for hours, which your neighbors will not appreciate. And aggression can surface during mating season, around feeding, or in reaction to triggers entirely invisible to their owners, hormonal shifts in human family members, unfamiliar visitors arriving, other animals present in the house. Sanctuaries and rescue organizations right across the United States sit full to capacity with wolf dogs purchased as fluffy wolf-like puppies and given up somewhere between 6 months and a year later, once their owners understood they'd acquired an animal that is fundamentally and irreconcilably unsuited to life within a human home. Those sanctuaries perform extraordinary work, but the volume arriving every year overwhelms them, and any wolf dog that cannot be placed is ultimately euthanized because nowhere else exists to take it. That leaves the wolf in third place. Largest cat alive on the planet, and estimates suggest more tigers currently live in captivity inside the United States than survive in the wild across the entire planet. Some figures put the captive American population at somewhere from 5,000 to 10,000 animals, set against roughly 4,500 left in the wild, and the bulk of that captive population sits in the roadside zoos, private facilities, and ordinary homes rather than accredited zoos or sanctuaries. In certain states, buying a tiger has proven easier than adopting a shelter dog, and until recently, no federal rules meant no comprehensive database tracked how many tigers sat in private hands or where. That began changing in 2022 when the Big Cat Public Safety Act banned private ownership and public contact, though animals already held by existing owners were grandfathered in, so thousands remain out there. A tiger cub sells for a few thousand at most, and through its first months, it's a playful and seemingly manageable creature, one that gets bottle-fed, photographed, and paraded online for likes and attention. Cubs grow fast, though, and 2 years on that cute animal weighs beyond 200 kilograms, puts away between 5 and 7 kilos of raw meat daily, and possesses the speed, the strength, and the predatory instinct required to kill whoever owns it with one swipe. Housing a captive tiger properly, feeding it and covering its veterinary care, is estimated at somewhere from $5,000 to $20,000 annually, and a great many private owners simply cannot cover that. Malnourished tigers in inadequate enclosures stay a depressingly frequent sight at roadside attractions throughout the American South, and animals that escape or get abandoned tend to arrive at sanctuaries that are already full, and the tiger lands second. No animal demonstrates why wild creatures should never become pets more forcefully than the chimpanzee, and the reason is straightforward. Chimpanzees resemble us closely enough that people persuade themselves the animal can be raised as a human child, while differing from us enough that the inevitable collapse of that experiment turns catastrophic. A baby chimpanzee is irresistibly cute, emotionally expressive, and able to form bonds with human caregivers that feel authentic and mutual. They pick up sign language, use tools, recognize themselves in mirrors, and show a spectrum of emotions instantly legible to any human dealing with them. Through those first few years, they seem like the perfect pet, a furry and intelligent companion who is very nearly human. But almost human is exactly what a chimpanzee is not. These are wild animals, far stronger pound for pound than any adult person, and once sexual maturity arrives somewhere around 8 to 10 years old, dramatic behavioral changes turn that gentle, playful juvenile into something powerful, territorial, and unpredictable. Males, in particular, grow steadily more aggressive with maturity, driven by hormonal shifts that are a normal, necessary component of chimpanzee social development while being flatly incompatible with life in somebody's house. They assert dominance through intimidation, through aggression, sometimes through violence, and a mature male raised in a human household has no comprehension of why his human family refuses to submit to those displays the way a wild troop would. What follows, across one tragic case after another, is an animal grown too strong, too aggressive, too unpredictable to control, and which eventually injures or kills the very people who raised it. The best-known case involves a 14-year-old chimpanzee named Travis, living in Stamford, Connecticut, who in 2009 attacked a friend of his owner with a ferocity that horrified the entire country. His victim survived, but her injuries were life-altering and a face transplant was needed to repair them. Police shot Travis dead at the scene. Connecticut tightened its own laws afterward, and the incident pushed Congress to take up the Captive Primate Safety Act, a bill that would ban private possession and interstate commerce in primates. That bill has been reintroduced repeatedly ever since and still has not become law, which means no federal statute governs keeping a primate as a pet today. Thousands of chimps and other primates are still privately owned across the country, and the possibility of another Travis remains entirely real. The chimpanzee takes first place comfortably and without much argument, and it stands as the single strongest case anyone can build against keeping wild animals in the home. However deeply you love them, however well you treat them, however confident you feel about managing them, pets they are not. They are wild animals, they will stay wild animals, and no amount of human resemblance changes that. Once more, if the deadliest animals on this planet are a subject that appeals to you, our ebook is worth a look. That's the deadliest 50 animals on Earth, linked below in the description. There are, of course, plenty of other wild animals people keep and shouldn't, and I've no doubt some of you have suggestions of your own. Any thoughts of your own, drop them below and let me know. For now, though, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.